Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Modern Yoga Talks. We have Antoinette Webb. She's amazing if you haven't heard about her. So, Antoinette, for those of the audience that don't know about you, please introduce yourself.
All right, I am Antoinette Webb. I am from Detroit, Michigan, but I reside in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm a plus size yoga teacher and a mom of
Love it.
three and a wife and all the good things.
So, Antoinette, can you give us a little bit of story, what your life was like before you tapped into the yoga path?
Woo! We might have to do multiple episodes on that. Being a Midwest girly, honestly, life was just kind of fast. It was just, you got this to do, you do this, and you make it back home safe, pretty much. I pretty much had, I would say, the average Black American upbringing. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. But overall, I would say my main guiding light was my mom. And I'm grateful to have had her in my upbringing because my goodness gracious, I was a little one that had questions on questions on questions. And she always held space to answer them as best as she could. So I've always been an active individual, be it cheerleading or dance or choir. Like I've always been attracted to the arts thanks to my mom. And so I've carried that with me, honestly, all the way through school. I had a crazy transition from ninth to 10th grade because I moved from Detroit to Indiana. I know, throwing that one in there too. And think of angsty teen kind of going through the motions. I'm 16. I'm like, oh, my life is over. And, going through all of that. It was I would say after some of the passings of prominent people in my life, like my grandmother, and then the next, couple of years moving to another place, I just kind of felt like I kept being ripped from what I knew. And so we settled in Indiana. That was a very interesting experience, but I do have to credit a lot of people for part of my journey of making Indiana nice because I did not like that change. Even though Indiana is right under Michigan, it is a completely different world between those life changes and graduating. I was in that space of, I don't really know what I want to do. My mom was always, speaking life over me as far as, oh, you're so good with your hands are gifted. And, yeah, maybe you become a massage therapist or, just something in some form of wellness or therapeutic relief for others. And like me, literally as a child, I used to give my family massages because I'm just like, I don't know, it felt good to do. And so I'm like, I'm pretty good at this thing. So I revisited that after I graduated high school. Life took another turn. I was in college for massage, and then I lost my home. After that, we lost our car. After that, we lost our jobs. Like it was just a lot of loss and loss and loss and loss. And eventually, I had to quit school. My mom made her way down here to some of my family members that stayed down here, and then I eventually followed. So there's another change. Now, I'm 20, about to be 21. I'm about to be a full adult, and I'm in a new place, no friends, a couple of family members, and it was just a lot going on. And then it took a year before I met the love of my life. And so I was like, well, that's fast. After that, we had our first child, which we also thought was fast. But it was honestly perfect. Shout out to the snowstorm of 2014. But in this particular period of transition is when I kind of started to come back to my body. Through all the other transitions, I didn't have space to think about me because there was so much going on. I'm like, okay, I just have to survive. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I don't have the time to think about my life in depth. I just need to survive and get to the next thing so that I can hopefully stand still for a moment and take a deep breath. And so when I had my first baby, that was just an experience all in itself. And ultimately, it came to me saying, I want to feel at home in my body. I felt like a foreigner, and I felt it was kind of like body snatchers. kind of. It was like, I don't know what to do with this body. I don't know what it can do. It feels weird. I had like no kind of postpartum support. I was going through postpartum depression and I didn't know it. We ended up experiencing 2 deaths in the same year. So within my first postpartum period, I think the first death was 5 months into it. And it hit my husband very, very hard. It was the closest death that he's had to him. Oddly enough, the experience with me experiencing my grandmother's passing when I was a teen actually helped me somewhat care for him in the way of like just being there for him and like explaining that it's not his fault, that it's, there's nothing that you could have done that you did not already do. And so I was like, okay, God, I see what you did there. I didn't know this was going to be helpful for me down the line. I just thought you were being mean. And so from there, 5 months later, I lost my dad. And I'm like, okay, this was a month after I started my yoga thing. I had just got started in August. I said, I'm going to do this thing because it looks like it's good for the body. And my mom introduced me to yoga when I was younger, actually. Yeah, we were playing around and not really knowing what we were doing, but she was just like enlightenment and peace and presence. She's my resident hippie, so something just had me tap back into that. It was just like, hey, remember yoga? And I'm like, yeah, I remember yoga. But I don't know where to go. So I ended up searching a bunch of things and searching hashtags. It didn't look like I was gonna join the space because there was nobody that looked like me, be it plus size or black. And so I said, let me get specific with these hashtags and let me see if I can narrow down to see if there are any people that look like me in these spaces. And so I typed black yoga and I saw a few people. I was like, and so to see people sharing and whatnot, I was extremely inspired. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to have an excuse if I can find a plus size person. If I can find one plus size person, I'll start my journey. So I was okay, let me put in, plus size yoga. And I was still a little leery of the F word fat. So I'm okay, checking plus athletes. And the first face I saw, Jessamine Stanley, I said, I have no excuse. There's nothing I could say because somebody who looks like me is
I
out
get
here being
goosebumps.
a like in every, like, no matter how many times I tell this story, it's just like, and so I said, okay, you know what? That was one person I found. Let me become number two. And that's pretty much how I started sharing my journey. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to learn along the way. And I'm just going to share what I learned. And after a terrible experience at a yoga class, I almost quit. I did not go back to a public yoga class until a year later. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stay at home. I'm going to, do what I can and learn what I can. And eventually I'll find a safe space. And so fast forward, I was like, I want to be that safe space as I continue to share my journey and people started reaching out. I was like, you know what? I think I want to be a teacher so that people can come and join me and feel comfortable and safe to explore their practice. And so now here we are.
I have so many questions, by the way. Thank you for sharing all that because that's rich. And for everyone listening, I haven't really chatted with Antoinette this way before. We exchange chats and stuff like that. So this is
Yeah.
my first time actually hearing her story. So this is fascinating because I have, you know how I feel about you. I'm like, I adore you and you're very, very inspiring. And so I got a
Thank
lot of
you.
questions. I want to start from the
Sure.
thing, okay? Can you give me a little bit of background about your mom? Your mom seems pretty cool. Shout out to mom. And I want to know her background and a little bit of her story, how she was able to produce such a wonderful human being. So give me a little bit of background about your mom.
She's gonna guess what she is. I give her all the praise. I give God praise for her because I literally don't know how I would have done life if I hadn't. So my mom, Miss Anita, she's the youngest of. It's a lot of them. I think it's like 9 of them.
Oh,
So
wow.
she's the baby, and she's always honestly marched to the beat of her own drum. And, as she grew up, she would share with me, of course, when I finally came along, she would share that she just kind of did her own thing pretty much. And even if people kind of like thought it was weird or anything, it was just kind of like, oh, you're quirky, extremely silly. Even now, she's 63. Well, she'll be 60. I don't know what it is because she's so different from her siblings. She's so different from her siblings. And she just has this like love of life. And she exudes like everything yummy and gorgeous and beautiful. And she's like a human safety net. Like she just, no matter who she meets, no matter how long, you've gotten to talk to her, you just feel like you just got the warmest hug. Even if she doesn't touch you. But her hugs are amazing as well. Like I even have friends that are like, "Oh my god, you're walking to that church." I'm like, "I know, I know." But her story is honestly spectacular. She's gone through a lot in her life. She's had some very dark experiences. She struggled with her self love, self worth, all these different things. But she's always tried her best to find the bright side of something. And it was always, her main thing was always positive reinforcement. No matter what the thing is, positive reinforcement. I feel like that's, of course, where I get it from. Because I'm like, okay, you can't do this thing. Okay, that's fine. We're going to make sure that we know, whatever, whatever. And I feel like she approaches life like that. Like, no matter what the curveball and no matter how she feels about it, she's going to feel how she feels. But at the same time, she does not give up. And I admire that. She's a newlywed.
Oh,
To see her take a chance on love again after the different experiences of physical, mental, financial, emotional abuse from her previous marriages that she happened to outlive. We called her the Black Widow because it's like everybody who, honestly, she's literally the epitome of you cannot touch God's anointed because what you do to her, it comes back to you, period. Seeing her go from a place of being afraid to go outside of her home because of the CPTSD and the PTSD in general that she's had from her past to now having this wonderful husband who adores the ground she walks on. I mean, from the top of her bald head, literally, to the soles of her feet. Like, I tell her all the time, I'm just like, do you see? Like, do you see this amazingness? You took a chance, and like that's just her life. She will take a chance, even if she doesn't know, doesn't get it right. It doesn't keep her down, and she's the strongest person that I know.
that is so beautiful. She
But the
sounds so.
time,
Yeah, about
oh,
to say.
I'm
Oh, so
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. No,
Oh,
don't
I
mind.
forgot.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Forgot. So to tie it into yoga, if there's a fitness program out there, she's probably tried it or had it. So, being that my family has struggled for generations with self-image, body confidence, and ultimately just weight and all that, my mom has always been from Jane Fonda to like Richard Simmons to Shaun T to like she's had to tape the videos of VHS
The
or she's
80s,
had
the
to
90s, yeah.
yeah. And so when I was 13 specifically, when I was 13, she was a dental assistant. And so she would get up extremely early in the morning, but she would always do her morning workout or movement or something. And so one particular morning, she got up and she's like, hey, you want to do some yoga with me? I'm like, what is yoga? And she's like, it's when you connect, you connect your mind and your body through movement. And I was like, okay, sure. And so, mind you, I'm 13. So we're doing this thing, and I'm looking at the lady, I'm looking at us. I'm like, she is an older, thin white woman, and I am not that. And you are not that. But you are so confident that this thing is going to help you be calm and present in life. We did it, do the thing. So we've always been partners in crime and experiencing something. So all of her workout different things, she said, "That's something. Okay, cool. Let's do it." So between doing different belly dance duties and just all kinds of stuff, we always kind of made our way back to yoga. like I said, that was the first thing that I thought of when I had my baby. I was like, okay, I don't want to do the workout DVDs and stuff. That just doesn't feel like my life right now. Being a new mom again in this new body, I'm like, I don't want to be in pain. I don't want to meet myself through trying to fight what I am or who I am right now. I want to meet myself where I'm at. I want to honor this space and work from there. And so that's kind of how we wrap that around together.
It's beautiful. She sounds so interesting to me. I mean, I don't need to know the details, but there's just so
Mhm.
much richness and experience there. And as well as the dark times, we all experience that. It just differs in levels. But I feel like your mom alone experienced so much already. And then there's your experiences that are also intense. I mean, I'm sorry about the losses. And you know that feeling when, you know, when it rains, it's fucking really pours, like it just goes.
Yes, my gosh, the last 16 years of my life.
It's incredible. And there's a lot of challenges. And also, it shows just the resilience and how beautiful your mom is as a parent. I'm not a parent, and I know you are. And, when parents, especially back in that generation before us, they always tell you what to do, but they don't fucking do it. And
Do
your
what I say,
mom.
not as I do. Yes.
Yes. And then, but your mom lived by example. And that in return, without even trying, that created a resilient, beautiful human being out of you. And man, you experienced so much. And thank you for sharing all that. Now, so many things you said, I want to ask a lot, but I'm going to try and pack this in 1 hour. So you said you tried yoga.
Mhm.
Can you the story? You don't have to mention names
Yes.
if you don't want to. What's the
I love
experience was? You're enjoying this episode. And as we all know, yoga is more than just poses, right? It is truly about connection. And this year, yoga teacher struggling to keep students engaged and build a loyal community. I've got something for you. You can grab my free guide, 3 pro tips to pack your classes and learn how to create a welcoming space, guide flows with confidence, and leave a lasting impact that keeps students coming back. You can get it now at 3stepyoga.julessedulo.com and start teaching with more connection and ease. Now back to the episode.
Okay. So I have two older sisters. My middle sis, she worked at a like LA Fitness. I believe it was LA Fitness. So she worked at an LA Fitness and she was like, hey, I know you like that yoga thing, but you seem to like it. And so I'm gonna look out. Speaking of my middle sister, God bless her. She is a whirlwind, but she was the first person to physically invest in me and my practice. So 2015 is when I started my practice. I started it in August of 2015. My father died, our father died September. And by December, which is my birth month, he bought me my first yoga mat and my first yoga block and my first yoga strap. She was like, I know you. She's like, I know it's cheap. I'm like, girl, I don't have any of this stuff. This is all new to me. So thank you. She worked at an LA Fitness, and she was like, girl, I get these classes for free and stuff. So we need to come and check out these yoga classes. And use up these. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I was still very much a baby in learning the difference between hatha and vinyasa and ashtanga. And I'm like, I'm looking up the definitions, and I'm, trying to gauge if this is something for us. And I can't remember if it was a traditional, I want to say it was the traditional Ashtanga class.
At an
And
LA
I was like,
Fitness?
yeah, which was, look, it was in the area. So they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're going to, do the same. So, I'm excited, nervous. I'm already like, we're probably going to be the only Black people. I know for a fact I'm going to be the biggest person in the room. I'm mentally preparing for these things because they're just factual. And I'm like, okay, because I know this, I'm still prepared to step into this space and show you, hey, we're here too. We're here. Okay. So we walk into the room and this is my first experience. I'm like, oh, I remember. Like, Jesus. They got the music and they got all the props and stuff. And there was a few people sprinkled in there and they were clicked up. And I said, ooh, this is giving clickish energy, but that's okay because we're here. We're open. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna see what this is like. Let's see what this feels like. Let me see what I get from it and how I can transform it for people who look like me. And so everybody is kind of like, different segments of the room, and there's no mat on the floor. And I'm like, okay, where do oh, I'm gonna just go, hey, let's go get our mat from over here. Like nobody spoke to it, not a soul. I didn't know that the teacher was even in the room. Everybody, it was pretty much like it felt like the first day of school and at a new school. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's get our mats in. Let's just kind of we're just gonna pile in here. So everybody started kind of like robotically getting their things and they're placing themselves. Again, no one spoke to us this whole time. There was about 67 people in there. Nobody spoke to
Wow.
us.
Okay.
And again, that's including the teacher that I did not know was the teacher. Because in my mind, if you're a teacher, especially if you see new people, you're going to think, hi, I'm so and so. I'll be leading this class today. Here are the mats, here are the props. Place yourself wherever you need, and we will begin something. Give me a little something. No. So we're following everybody else putting their things out, and we placed our mats down. I'm just like, okay, relax. Cause now I'm kind of like feeling away. I'm angry, but then I'm also still like in that like anxious phase. And I'm just, you can't start yoga angry. Gotta calm down. And so everybody gets into their stance at the top of the mat. I'm literally saying this to my sister. I swear, doing the thing. And immediately they start speaking another language. I said, oh, wait a minute. I don't know what this is, but you know what? I'm going to pray to God because I don't know what this is. And everybody just, okay, again, nobody told us anything. So I'm like, God, being moving something. I don't know. Again, I'm a baby in the yoga in the yoga space. So I'm nervous because I also come from a Christian upbringing, and so even me thinking about yoga is a radical stance because they're like, oh, you're going to hell. They're worshiping demons. They're worshiping other gods, and I'm like, you no, that's actually not. But okay, so I'm fighting with that in my head, especially with them speaking Sanskrit. Of course, I know it's Sanskrit now, and so I'm battling. I'm like, oh my god, maybe they are. Like I'm just having an existential crisis in the moment. So I'm just like, you know what, God, we're here. This is for us. I just want to connect to you and my God. Like, I'm just talking to God in my head. And so then everything was in Sanskrit.
Wow.
Everything. And I'm
Okay.
like, so now again, the teacher never acknowledged us. He did not look me in my face. Not once. So they're leading everything, and I'm not about to butcher Sanskrit, but they're leading everything in Sanskrit. And so I'm looking and I'm like, this kind of looks like a sunstyle. Because I kind of knew what that was. And so I'm like, hey, King, reach your arms above head. And so I'm, mind you, I don't know necessarily, I don't know, lift your chest, release it. I don't know all that stuff yet, but I'm just like, hey, reach up. Okay, you're going to go touch your toes. Like I'm literally I'm whispering this throughout the class. And so we might have made it all the way through one sunstyle and back to the top of the map. I think we were about to go into B, but the entire time that I'm in downward dog, turning my head to my sister like, "Hey, put your feet here, put your hands here." And I said, "You know what? I'm not about to fight. I'm not about to fight with this teacher, with these people, or with myself in this class because why am I sitting here telling my sister what the information that I barely know in a class led by a professional?" I said, "Candy, that's my sister's name." I said, "Candy, let's go. I can't do this. This is not a good experience. I'm ready to flip all this shit over, to be perfectly honest." And I was like, I shouldn't feel this way in this space. And so I believe At some point, I'm a crier. At some point, I'm pretty sure I cried about it because I'm like, this is that thing that would keep somebody from ever experiencing a true yoga class ever again. Like that could have ended me. It really truly could have. But I said, you know what? Maybe there will be a point in time where I'll be leading a class at LA. I'll
There
be
you
the
go.
teacher for people to come in and I can do everything that did not happen for us. So that's pretty much how I've taken that experience and like turned it around. Even though it did take me a year to go back, I said, you know what? I want to learn a little bit more stuff because the next time that I go to a class first, I'm going to say something. Like, hopefully, I can find a class that's just better suited or a teacher that's better suited for the experience I'm looking for. And that was my first time actually thinking that I need to find teachers that are willing to teach me. Because clearly he had a few clients that he enjoyed and everybody knew each other and it was just like, this is my crew, y'all can do whatever. And even when we got up and walked out in the middle of classes, we're kind of like in the middle towards the back a little bit. But even as we walked out, there was still no acknowledgement. Like we were ghosts. We were ghosts to them. And I just felt really, really like I felt really defeated. I felt defeated in the moment, but I said, you know what, nah, I don't want anybody else to feel like that if I can help it. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's intense. I think being like at that time, being baby to yoga and then coming into an Ashtanga class and then LA Fitness, that's like a double whammy there. Like, I
Yeah.
feel you. I'm actually
Yeah.
very impressed you stayed for that long.
As long as I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And most importantly, you recognized it and then you walk the fuck out of there. Like,
Yeah.
because it's not, serving you. And I think
Yes.
not to defend Ashtanga practice, there's a lot of that practice, as you know now, right? It's a very strict practice. To be
Yeah.
teaching it at an LA Fitness, that's kind of like a very different discipline, different
Yeah.
energies, right?
It
But
is. It
also,
is.
like, I think the people in the West that were taught Ashtanga, and if you
Mhm.
apply the teaching from that part of the world, there's a disconnection because there's a lot of that. It's like just culture. The
Yes.
way the first, our fathers, like, the father, Patabi Joyce taught that coming from his
Yeah.
culture. And I've never practiced Ashtanga. I know the poses, but I never did. It just hits too close to home for me. I'm from that part of the world and we're crazy as fuck over
Right.
there. So
Right. You know, it's a no for me.
it triggers
Okay.
me so much. I feel like there's a lot of greatness in Ashtanga practice. I mean, if you struggle with self discipline, it's a great place to start. If you're
Yes.
like
That.
trying
Yes.
to get in, right? It's a perfect place to
Yes.
start.
Yes.
But, right,
It is
it's
not
not
for
even for
everybody.
me. And I'm from there. So I'm not doing that.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's too much. It's too much for me. But that's
Hmm.
intense. I feel like you just experience those intensities, but you also come out of it with such a beauty. And it's just freaking amazing to me. And, like understanding. So and again, I have a lot of questions, but when
Hey,
I,
go for it.
when I, found you on Instagram, I think it was you and Jasmine. I think so. Obviously, there's a different audience with a plus size practitioner, right? And I know, like, just factually, like theoretically, I know it's different. It's the internal process of that is very different. But for me, I've always been like a chubby girl because I didn't do shit when I was young. Like, I ate, I drank, and I passed out. That's about it.
And
I
there
get
you
in
have
trouble.
it.
There you go. So that's all I ever done. And then
Mhm.
I'm also very short. So coming into
Me too.
yoga space, it was a challenge for me. One, coming into Instagram, majority of the people that you see are Caucasians and they're super skinny. I've
Yes.
never been a skinny person. I don't even, I only had like one time in my life that I was like skinny. I didn't like. So anyways, so when I came into the practice, I was also like, I was very like muscly. So I didn't look like anyone. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't be doing this because there's that sense, the superficial sense of I don't belong here. It's not for me. So it was you and Jessamine, like, cause I was like practicing, the hard shit.
Of course.
And then I was like, maybe won't be able to do this. Maybe it's just not for me. Maybe it's my height, my strength, all kinds of excuses that you have.
Right.
And then
Right.
I saw you, and then I saw Jessamine. I think it was her photo shoot. She was doing like maybe I don't know if it was really her, but this is my memory because you guys are the only people that I really follow religiously. But
Yeah.
I saw one picture, and plus size woman was on a handstand. Oh my God. I was just blown away. And now that kind of gave that perspective, like you have zero excuse now. Like what is your excuse? And then I know you've done Carson's 200 hour, and you see
Yeah.
Carson is like 6'3", and that guy is,
Very pale, very strong man.
and then that flexibility is just insane to me.
Insane. Yes.
So, like, to me, what my belief was, I'm short, right? Like, so a lot of people came to me like that. Are you that flexible because you're just short? I just, that urge to want to punch somebody in the face is like, okay,
Hey.
no. Anyway, so like seeing Carson and the amount of flexibility he has, not just flexibility, but mobility, also proved me wrong that it has
And is
nothing to do
hell.
with height. So
Yes.
these all these little things that are coming to place, and then like there are people like me. There are people that
Yeah.
are also different. You know what I mean? So it brings that to perspective. It's just that awareness for majority of the world, it's kind of hard. Just like common sense. It's not as common.
Yes. Speaking of photo shoots, you actually just jogged a memory. So there's actually one other person that I saw that inspired me to practice that is plus size, Dana Falsetti. Dana. And the first time that I got to work with Athleta and Gap, I got to do a photo shoot with Dana Falsetti. I said, my gosh, I'm literally meeting another one of my yoga inspirations. Not to mention the conversation we wound up having. So to tie it in, me and Dana got to have like a really nice chat after this 111, where I'm at. I got to have a really nice conversation with them, and they ended up letting me know how this kind of came to be. They were like, Dana was like, so this was actually supposed to be with me, Jessamine, and I can't remember the man's name. And they were like there was a scheduling conflict with Jessamine, and so it's like they both shouted me out and was like, hey, reach out to her because, she's amazing. And I was like, wait a minute. You, oh my gosh. And so she was like, yeah. They were like, yeah, this is the realm of, the idea that, we want us to bring forth for this photo shoot. And something that I appreciated and I noticed, they were like, a lot of these photo shoots, not with Gap and Athleta specifically, but a lot of the different yoga photo shoots, they won't have yoga props. And they were like, it's in their contract that yoga props will be used. And I said, oh my gosh, you can do that? You can tell people? And so they were like, yeah, because what we're not gonna do is glamorize, all this stuff. We're gonna make it real. It's accessible, like and so we were configuring the different poses and stuff. And I was just really thinking about that. I'm like, these three beautiful plus size individuals using prompts. Like, oh my gosh, it was beautiful. And it just, the whole campaign was amazing. So when it went to the second time that I got to work with them, yeah, second time, that was the first thing that I thought of. I said, hey, bring me all the props y'all got. I need all the different props. I want to do some things and, whatnot. And that was kind of like my personal ode to Dana because even in a modeling space, they thought of what it looks like to be a plus size person representing and then also seeing another plus size person. Because, and this is something that I try to share in my practice. Like, yeah, just like you said, you do like the kind of the hard shit, the crazy shit. I love doing that too because it's my own personal challenge. That's a me versus me kind of thing. Do I teach it all the time? Hell no, because that's not the beginning. We're always going to start with the foundation. And so I always try to tell people, like, yeah, I'm over here doing this and the third, but I didn't start here. What I'm teaching you, this sun salutation that we're about to do, is what got me to these points. That plank you don't want to hold, yeah, boo. That's the thing that's gonna get you over here. But yeah, I just wanted to add that Dana was the other plus size individual that I saw, and Jessamine was the first plus size and black individual that I saw. Okay, go ahead.
That's amazing. And I think this is where like the beauty of the like social media comes in, like the amount of inspiration you find. I had this conversation with another guest, and that, this is just like meditation, right? If you think about it from that perspective,
Moving meditation.
it's with life. It's like you see a lot of things in peripheral, but you have a focus and you want to
Yes.
focus on the good stuff and what fuels you and leaves you with a positive effect. So I like when seeing social media that way. So from your
Yes.
experience, obviously you're a props person, and I love that because I'm a props person. And having the physical limitations that you have, since you mentioned about you and your mom watching this woman and you're like,
Yeah.
shit, she doesn't look like us. Yes. So how do you make yoga adaptive to you for your personal practice, not just with the props, but just from the mental sense of it, from your conversation with yourself, as well as like how do now being a teacher, how do you now translate that to your students?
So first with my personal practice, the first thing that I literally did, I was like, I don't know what to do, but I'm gonna start this yoga challenge. Kino McGregor. She had a 7 day plank challenge. Said, I don't know, you do planks in 7 different ways. Well, that's that push-up thing, right? Day one, I still have the picture. Day one, I held what I thought was an amazing plank, and looking back, I said, "Oh, we were on the struggle bus." But I was so humbled by it because just like this was me actively connecting my breath to the body, and then realizing I'm not as strong as I thought I was, and so now the all the things that I grew up hearing, the negatives, you know what I'm saying, things, and all of this is coming to mind. Everything that society says about my body, I'm like, oh my gosh, and so it was it was interesting. It was like a loud conversation with myself. I talk to myself all the time, even in practice. And so I'm like, okay, I don't know how to do that necessarily. So what can I use to help me do these things? If it was touching my toes, if it was anything, I literally would use a neck scarf. I said, let me grab this scarf because I don't know what a strap is. So I'm gonna use my neck scarf. I'm gonna use this head scarf, like anything that I could find to basically help that extension. I used it. I said, okay, you want me to do what and balance on who? Okay, no, I don't know about that just yet, but let me grab this chair and let me see. Because this is weird. I don't every sensation just felt so weird and foreign. And so I would try the thing and kind of see the mechanics of it. Of course, I would look it up to see, of course, the benefit, all of that. But the main thing was to honestly get creative. So even when I took future classes, if there was another class that I took that really like solidified my need of being a teacher. But yeah, it just something was in me to say it's not that I can't do it, I just don't know how to access it in my body. And nobody's teaching me that because they're working with their bodies and their audience. And even though I felt a way about that, I said, you know what? Instead of me feeling some kind of way about what is being excluded, let me create a space in my own practice to include myself in all these things. You're doing some kind of flying one handed, whatever, with your foot behind this, and the pretzel is over here. Okay, cool. I'm not doing all of that. But I can see where I want to be so that I can then see where I want to go and take it. So with the internal voice, it was like, girl, you can't do that. Like, how you going? Now you know, like it was that initial self doubt, and I'm like, okay, what if I move my meat over? Like I tell everyone, move the meat, move the flesh, Move it out the way. If it's in the way, grab the boob, move it, and look how you have more access to do this twist. Move the arm if you need to, whatever. Your body, touch your body. It's okay to make these adjustments. You're just providing yourself with better alignment, because if you don't, you're at risk of injuring yourself. So the way I take it into practice with teaching now is honestly the same. I teach it as if it's me. It's like, hey, whether you have big boobs like I do or not, if you feel that, or a belly or thighs, whatever you may have going on, move it out the way. Scooch it over. See how it feels when you move your meat. You might feel the way, you might feel self-conscious, like, oh my gosh, why do I even have to do this? The why isn't important. It's the fact that you're showing up for yourself in this moment to not only do the thing that you're trying to do, but letting your body know, hey, we got this. It's okay. It's not the, oh, I have to lose all this weight first, so now that my stomach won't, sit on my legs in a forward fold. Girl, if you don't lift that belly, maybe the legs a little bit wider to invite your belly to have space and love to go into that next thing. So it's more like identify the thing and include it in your practice. I'm not going to be able to just chop off my belly, but what I can do, I can lift her up. I can widen my legs. I can invite a nice little cushion for her while I continue to go into the next thing. So I just pretty much invite people to honor their bodies. You're not going to change it in this practice, but you can love on it a little bit more. So let's do that.
That's very insightful because I dated a guy that is a plus size, and coming from the cultural background that I have, we don't really see a lot of bigger people back then. So
Yeah.
to me, that was just like more like a matter of fact, but the understanding is very on the surface. We don't really understand it unless you experience it yourself, right?
Yes.
So to
Yeah.
me, I actually had to Google that. I had to understand it because I wanted to know. And I don't want to be a dick. I don't want to be saying shit or doing shit and then making somebody uncomfortable. I need to
Yeah.
do my due diligence, right? So when in my 300 hour, because, yoga is dominantly like a lot of like skinnier people. So in my
Yeah.
300 yoga training, it's trauma informed. So we had our teachers like use like maybe like 3, 4, 5 blankets together and wrap it around our bodies and put it on.
That though, I know for some it might sound silly, but I truly love that they helped you place yourself in the body, so to speak.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then we were just like this, and we don't know how that feels, right? So now
Yeah.
we're just sitting there uncomfortable, and then the teacher came and be like, now that's one of your students. How you feel right now could be one of your students. Now I want you to we practice in that thing. But
I love it.
and then the teacher was like, every movement that you create, I want you to pay attention what you're doing to make it
Yeah.
accessible for you. And
Yes.
that is just really, really good teaching, if you ask me, because we don't really know, right?
Yeah.
We can intellectualize it and see it from that perspective, but the experience is just so different. And I think that's
Yes.
the beauty of what you bring in. And also, that was makes you a freaking great teacher because there's an extension, there's a bridge, right? So but you're basically saying is when you practice, you see yourself as a student as well. So you're
Yes.
literally practicing for your student. And
Yeah.
when you're teaching, you see you. So you're teaching for yourself. So there's that's whole infinity thing. And I think that's a
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing to have because not a lot of teachers can really have that. That's hence your experience, right? And I have my
Yes.
experiences too. Another topic
Yeah.
for next time. So now my question to you. For
Yeah.
people who are not plus size, from a teacher's perspective,
Yes.
first,
Yes.
what would be your advice when they have a plus size person in their class and how to make that person feel welcome and feel seen? From a practitioner's perspective, what is your
Mhm.
advice to a fellow practitioner experiencing exactly the same things that you experience as a practitioner?
So as a teacher, I would say consider, even though personally this would be a no-brainer, consider having all of the prop and all whatever you can think of that can be useful in the practice, either right next to the mat or within some form of arm's reach or a few steps. I would also say consider breaking the practice down from that small perspective first and then build on top of it. Again, this sounds like a no-brainer, but we're not gonna just go right into a chaturanga. We're not doing that. Because guess what? 99.9% of us can't even do a push-up. Instead of messing people's alignment up and messing with elbows and wrists and thinking lower back, like start from the beginning. Invite a cat cow if you're gonna do a vinyasa. Hey, if you want to make it a little bit spicier, maybe go to a push up on the knees. Now here, let's talk about some mechanics. So now you're getting the mechanics for the arms specifically. Like, okay, they need to be here and tight, yada yada yada. And it's like, hey, if you feel comfortable with A and B, if you feel that you have that strength and whatnot, because now I'm giving you homework. If you feel that you're ready for that next step, go ahead and bust out a chaturanga. Now, 2 out of 10 is still not going to be right, but the point is you have something else to rely on, and you now have something else that you can reach for if that's your goal. So for the teacher, invite the first step. We learned how to sit up first. Then we learned how to crawl. Then we learned how to cruise along with props, along furniture. Then we learned how to stand on our own. And then we learned how to haul ass and run around the house and everything else. We didn't just go from birth to I can roll over and now I'm speaking 5 languages. No, that might be somebody's experience. But look for the overall collective. That's not going to be your classroom. Even if everybody looks like they can do the thing, invite them to take a step back. Hey, let's start here because there's some goodness here that you might have been missing. And then on the days where we're not into doing all the hard and extra shit, we get to come back and be like, oh, I can invite this here. And then you can continue to build on. So have the props and all the things nearby and start scale it back from the very beginning. Do a cat cow, just for instance, as far as the chaturanga goes. Do a cat cow, even if it's a tree pose, versus just hiking that knee on, that foot on up to the inside of the knee. Invite a yoga block. Put that block next to your foot. Put that block next to your foot. Lift your foot up on it. See how that feels. You're balancing on one foot here. Now see the difference of how it feels on your ankle. Okay, that extra layer of protection is gone now. Lift it up to the inside of the calf. Okay, you might feel a little something in the hip. Like there's so much that's unseen in the little things because everybody is so ready to just jump to that thing that's way ahead. It's like, no. Bring it on back. Your students are gonna love you for it because they're gonna go home and practice that stuff. And when they come back, they're gonna be like, oh, look, the last time I came to class, I was here, and now I'm able to do this because they just that first thing. They've gotten that idea, that repetition. But if you don't invite the yoga blocks for the chaturanga or for a seated forward fold or just whatever, if you don't invite the things, your students 9 times out of 10 are gonna look like, oh, if I didn't need this stuff, I usually need this stuff. I'm not really practicing. I'm not like everybody else. And that's a whole different thing to deal with. And that's kind of where we go to the student aspect. And if I can add a story here,
Go for it.
I
Yeah.
I went to a workshop and it was an inversion workshop. And I said, oh, because I'm going to work on my inversion. In the middle of class, I really excited, probably a little too excited. The teacher was explaining, how to enter a particular pose and what they can use and, different things. So I was excited. I said, oh, okay, cool. They're talking about the wall as a prop. Nice. I love it. Hey, what about using a yoga strap too, or some blocks, or whatever else. And they were like, I really don't encourage using those sorts of things because the body needs to understand the mechanics for itself, and that kind of feels like a hindrance more so than a help. And I was just like, let me shut my mouth because as a person who practices that way safely, completely disagree with you, but I'm not a teacher, so let me shut. This is not my class. Let me shut up. So when we got to free play, I did exactly what I knew to do. I used my prop. I used my yoga blocks. I used my yoga strap, and I actually wound up assisting one of my friends in their inversion. I said, I'm not the teacher. Well, let me assisting. I'm assisting my friend. I was like, yeah, I think teaching is in my future. Not to mention, while we were doing like other things in practice, there were a few people sitting kind of like a little bit ahead of me, and they were kind of struggling. They were kind of talking to each other because they're friends. And, I don't know, like where are the yoga blocks? I was like, hey, you need my yoga blocks? You can take my blocks for this. Like if you just, you know, the teacher only after I invited them to use my yoga blocks a few times did the teacher then say, hey, if you need yoga blocks, they're over here. If you need props, if you need, what do you mean if you need? If you invite me into a space, I would love to have all the options here so that I can explore. Even if you don't use them, which I feel like you should, because you should give that example of, so this is a great way to practice this and this too, because XYZ. So when I teach inversions and whatnot, my very first thing is, hey, you do know a forward fold is an inversion, right? Okay. You do know that downward facing dog is an inversion, right? Like I try to kind of break that cycle of, oh, it's only handstands, it's only pincha, it's only headstand. No, boo, booty and body above the heart. That's an inversion. Okay, so when you twerking that thing, you're in an inversion. I'm just saying, if you bend over to your front, touch your toes, you're doing yoga. If you want to think about it like that. But as a student, I would honestly say, hopefully you're in a welcoming space. But if not, advocate for yourself. Advocate for yourself. One is going to expose to the teacher what they're lacking. Hopefully they take that and, build on it. But advocate for yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for yoga props if they aren't available. I would say when you go right into class, hey, where are the yoga blocks, the bolsters, the yoga straps, and whatever, where those? Because even if you're in a child's pose, maybe you don't want to go all the way down. Grab that bolster. It's because it's right next to you already. You can flow in and out of your practice with and without yoga blocks and props. And that's how I like to kind of like teach it. It's like, I have it here. So even if you invite the movement without it, you now have a chance to explore with it. Maybe you like that better, maybe you don't, but it gives you a chance to see what you like. So advocate for yourself. Don't be afraid.
And I think, like, for practitioners, it's so hard. Just to practice in general and going to a studio or like a public place, because we all struggle in this. Like, oh, am I doing it right? Do I belong? Is it embarrassing? And all the self consciousness and insecurities. And I always encourage my students to, like, I know I'm not for everybody. So if you come in, you can give it a shot. And I hope you stay. But if you ever get to a point that you feel like this is not for you, you're not gonna hurt my feelings. That's the door.
Right.
Please,
Yes.
I want you to think about you. I'm just a person.
Just a
You can go.
guy.
Yeah, you
Just a
can go.
guy. That's something that I tell people too. I'm like, do everything or nothing. This is your time.
To me, I have such respect for students who do that. Or, there's a difference between being a dick and then doing it from like an intention of, okay, this is not
Yes.
for me. That's a
Yes.
realization. That's an awareness. But if you're just
Yes.
being an asshole, then that's different. That's
That's
still not
different.
about me. That's still about you. But hey,
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
it's talking about that. So being a teacher, and you already kind of tapped into it a little bit, how you feel about it, that being iffy, like being a student and becoming a teacher, and even as a teacher coming to someone else's class and not, kind of like, you don't know if you should.
Yes.
So how did you deal, if you're still dealing with it now, like how are you dealing with imposter syndrome?
So, it's a day-to-day thing. Only a day-to-day thing. So honestly, the best way that I make my way through imposter syndrome is, if it wasn't for me, I wouldn't be here. Like if it wasn't for me to do experience or I wouldn't be here. And sitting with the fact that I actually do have knowledge, be it experience based or from YTT, it's in me. And as much as I might look outwardly at society like, well, I don't have all of this, or I don't have my own studio. I don't have we're in my studio. But I don't have, a lot of in-person classes because I don't have my own stage. But if I look at all the don'ts and think about all of the do's, I have to sit with that. I really do have to sit with myself sometimes because my upbringing was very much, oh, you got to be in class. Oh, that's nice. Where's that A? You could have got an A. Because what would happen? It's like, I still get an A. Get that an A. And you're saying I could have did more? So like battling with that, you can do better, you can be better. One. Oh, we're gonna celebrate the win. We're going to celebrate every win. So that's one way that I battle it. If it's me posting when I said I'm going to post, if it's me doubling down on leading a class, even if I have no signups, if it's me putting myself out there, letting people know that I'm a yoga teacher, I did do that in a space that I never would have, but I said I'm doing the things that I never would have done to experience things that I have yet to experience. So like I went to Tweet's concert last year. Amazing concert. Shout out to Tweet. And they had like a mic moment where you could ask her a question and she would honestly answer. And I said, I ain't got no question necessarily. But I am a yoga teacher. So I was like, hey, I just want to know, do you practice yoga?
My
Because if
God,
you're
that's awesome.
looking for a yoga instructor, oh. And so I was looking for that and yada yada yada. And even though nothing has come of it as far as like me specifically working with her or anything like that, the point is everything in me did not want to go and reach for that mic. But it's exactly why I did it. I'm like, I have to stand in who I am to walk in who I am. There will go baby steps again. If I'm a yoga teacher, because I am, like it, and by act like it, I mean express that. People don't know that by looking at me, which now opens up a whole new world of conversation. Now it's like, oh my gosh, wait a minute, and it's like, yeah, boo, I am. What you want? What you want to know? What you want to talk about? So now we've opened that book for them, whoever that might be, to be like, and now their thought bubbles are going, and now maybe they've gone to a class or they, looked up information. Who knows? Sowing that seed simply because you're standing in who you are is going to help you fight that imposter syndrome. Because everything in you was like, no, you're not as good as yada, yada, yada. It's like, no, I'm as good as me. I don't have to be, anybody else. As long as I'm standing in my authenticity, even while feeling the fear, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it anyway because I'm scared is why I should. So that's kind of how it's like.
So, so you're saying it's the embodiment of it. And it's
Yes.
interesting. I saw, I think it was like on either TikTok or Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Obama said something to this effect when he said, like, don't ever think that you don't deserve a seat at the table. Because I've sat with a lot of people and, in the same table. There are leaders leading a country that are fools, but there are also very intelligent people in there. Different scenarios, but just that. When you take something, you have to embody, you have to believe it. I myself, just like you, I take it one day at a time. And, imposter syndrome will always be there. Like doing this podcast is like, that's why would I do that? Like, I think if you're coming from that core intention of, I want to create connection, everything will fall into place, right?
Yeah.
I think there's that beauty in that deep, deep core. And if
Yeah.
you're coming from that, everything, you'll experience challenges. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to be like puppies and rainbows, but,
Oh,
right? But now that we're talking about imposter syndrome and how you manage that, doing it, being scared, kudos and grabbing that microphone. Hey, that's it.
oh gosh, trust me. I tried to talk myself out of it. I said, no, no, do it. Because you don't know who's in the room. You don't know. You don't know who's in the room. That me doing that one thing could still possibly change my life. Just because I don't know it now doesn't mean I didn't set a ripple effect. And honestly, I
Absolutely.
already did. I set that ripple effect for myself because I'm like, girl, first off, you stood up in a room full of strangers and you spoke first. And you said the things you like you said embodied the thing, and I'm like, I did, didn't I? Me to myself, I
Yeah,
did. I
that's
did.
amazing.
Show up, show up. That's the
Absolutely.
only way that you're going to have that face to face conversation with imposter syndrome. You got to show up for it.
I love that. I still have one last thing that I want to talk to you about.
Oh,
So obviously you're an influencer and you have a great following, and that's where you and I got connected. So the question of social media, what is your relationship with it? Do you think that's connection or distraction?
it can be whatever you choose for it to be. I will always say that I've had some of the best connections, including meeting you, I have ever experienced via social media. Like, I have yet to hug and squeeze many of the people I consider very dear and close to me. I've yet to meet them in person, but because we have this space to connect, I've gotten to experience this. I've gotten to connect with people, and I'm just like, there's no when was the next time I was gonna be in Australia? Who knows? But I've met people from around the world that are just amazing. I now have like a Brazilian fan base, and I'm like, I don't want please, so I can speak to it out and y'all native tongue. Because it's how much I like want to and enjoy connection. Social is not a real place. Oh my gosh. But at the same time, some of the realest conversations have gone forth. It can suck, especially as an influencer. It really can suck. And because I've been sharing my practice for, it'll be 10 years this August, actually. Wow. About it. Lord, so much has changed from when Instagram first started having 15-second videos to now you can, load a whole concert and, so just honestly kind of learning what the purpose is for it and then how other people use it, it was definitely it was weird because when I first was sharing and like I'm first getting like the seeing my first 10,000 views or I'm like 10,000, I'm freaking out even now. I'm like wow, like y'all, but that's imposter syndrome. No, you're doing things, you're changing lives. That's why you're here. It can be a tool used for good or it can be a tool used for bad. I've experienced some of the most hateful comments that are not rooted in anything but self disdain. And that first, when it first really started happening, probably like 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I took it personal. I said, hold on. Like, my responses were very, very personal because I'm like, I'm just here existing. I'm just sharing me. Like, I'm not harming anyone. Why would you go out of your way to treat me, a stranger, so harshly? And it's based on what exactly? Like, what did I say? What did I do? So I took it very personally. And over time, I just realized people really hate themselves and they need somewhere to put it. And so they choose to put it in comment section. And so what I started doing, especially over the last few years, either I'm going to meet you where you are in the sense of I'm going to mirror your behavior to show you just how stupid you look and how stupid you sound, or I'm going to shine a light on that dark space that you're trying to run from because you're exposing yourself. And so, honestly, with doing that and not being attached to the response or to what they're saying personally, because it's not based on anything, it's always, oh, go to the gym. Oh, why are you looking like that? Why are you doing that? Like, I've had people literally have an argument about the color of the inside of my thigh.
I saw that. Yeah, people are dumb.
People are very dumb. Somebody even tried to talk about my pinky toe. I said, what? Like, oh my God, and then look at your pinky toe.
Did you zoom
It's a
in? Like, how fucking far did you like, go?
like, oh my God, are you okay? Do you just
How
need
much
somebody
free
to talk?
time do you have?
Literally it. it's astounding. But honestly, most of the time, I just try to tell people, I'm like, first, you're worried about the wrong things. Second, keep that same energy with the fat people in your life and move from there. Talk to somebody who cares because what you're saying is very irrelevant, childish, stupid, and as much as I want to tell you about yourself, some people I have told them about themselves, so they're very relentless. I am growing. I am healing. I am not healed. I am healing. I am growing. But honestly, even with some of those lower vibrational responses, sometimes you really do have to meet people where they're at so it can penetrate. And I'm actually taking some apologies. Well, some people have actually turned around and said, you know what, I am so sorry for coming at you like that, or whatever else. I'm just like, okay, do better. Take that with you. Take this moment and do better. Do better for the next person because whatever you talking to here didn't work. But I'm glad to have been a part of your experience where now you've taken something from it and hopefully you're a better person out in the world. And as far as being used for good, just be you. Be your weird, silly, goofy self. Be every dimension of yourself that you feel like sharing.
I love that.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Something that I always share with everyone who asks, honestly, is like, how did I get so comfortable? Every day, it's a daily thing. It's a do. I want to just wear my sports bra and shorts, or am I gonna put on XYZ? And even if I'm having that conversation with myself, I have to stop and I'm like, okay, who am I doing this for? If I'm gonna teach something specifically, I'm gonna be less, I guess, less distracting. But most of the time, I prefer to just show up how I truly feel or in something that is comfortable for me. One, it's for me, but two, it's so you can see that somebody who truly is comfortable in their skin, or at least continuing to learn how to be comfortable in their skin as their body changes, you might be moved to do the same thing. Just maybe. Just maybe. And I like to show up as much of me as I can because a lot of us are just kind of out here looking for the same thing. It's like, I just want to know that I'm not alone and whatever that thing is. And a lot of people will say that to me like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that someone my size could do any of this. Or I thought I wanted to try this, but I was too scared because of whatever else. And it's like, well, I got you. This is a safe space for you to explore all of that. Who am I to try to look at you and judge on anything? You have your own walk, I have mine. But we can come together, we can walk side by side, and we can share those different things as we go. So it just all depends. People are going to suck, but there are also people that need you. Just like people are going to need this podcast, they're going to need to hear from Jules. And so for you to have taken this step to make platform, to make this space, to elevate the collective, like you're doing the thing too. And so I'm even thoroughly inspired by speaking with you and getting to always, watch you as well. It's just beautiful when you connect with other authentic individuals. So if you're authentic, that authenticity will come looking for you too.
I love that. I love that so much. And unfortunately, this is the end of our podcast. And I want to give you the space to be able to tell everyone listening about your offering. And you got so much value. I tell Antoinette this all the
Thank you.
time, that the immense value that she has, not just to the plus size community, but as a community in general. There's just so much learning here. So, Antoinette, tell everyone what you got going on. I'll include all the links that you have in the description, but please talk to the audience.
So I currently teach virtually, so you can pretty much find me in my virtual space. Everything is predominantly on my Instagram, which is Journey, the number two, and then Antoinette. I'm pretty much that name everywhere: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Patreon. That's my new home for recorded videos and how tos because I like to break things down. I'm long-winded, so I like to break things down to the smallest level so you know what you're working with. And I like to share that on my Patreon. I will have monthly pay what you can virtual classes for those who might not have the finances to stretch to take a class with me. So It's literally pay what you can. If it's a dollar, it's a dollar. I'm just grateful that you're here showing up and taking space for yourself and just connecting with the collectives of those who want to move their bodies. And yeah, so I teach yoga. I love talking about body confidence or body comfort or self acceptance and all those wonderful things. I would definitely say I'm a body neutrality enthusiast because you're not going to always feel like super excited about your body, but you can at least feel neutral about it. And so, yeah, I think that covers it.
Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your beautiful story, your insight, and this, and I can't thank you enough for being here. You know how much
Thank you for
I
having
love you.
me.
You have a beautiful day, all right? Thank you, my love. That's a wrap for this episode, and thanks again for tuning in. And if you enjoy the conversation, make sure you show your appreciation. Follow us, rate us, leave a review on Spotify. It really helps the show grow. And if you want to keep the conversation going, you can connect with Modern Yoga Talks on Instagram. And again, big thanks to our wonderful guest for being on the show. Check the description for offerings and ways to connect with our beautiful guests. Thanks again.